The late hour meant most of the royal court had dispersed, leaving Queen Virelia's private study quiet except for the soft hum of data displays. I'd been summoned for a research briefing, standard procedure for my work as xenobiological consultant, though private audiences were less common. Your analysis suggests environmental adaptations would require. Virelia leaned forward to examine the molecular structure I'd projected, and the movement caught light in a way that rendered my higher cognitive functions temporarily inoperative. 4 months aboard the Sovereign Dawn, and I'd maintained perfect professional detachment. The Queen was brilliant, politically formidable, and objectively beautiful by any species standards. I'd noticed all of this, then carefully filed it under irrelevant observations that Nathan Cross will never acknowledge. But tonight she'd changed from formal court attire into something simpler. Her violet skin seemed to glow in the study's ambient light. Her hair was down instead of elaborately styled. She looked less like an untouchable monarch and more like Dr. Cross. She noticed my silence, turning to face me directly, and my exhausted, filter-impaired brain bypassed every protocol I'd spent months mastering and said exactly what I was thinking. "You're so sexy I lost my words." The silence was absolutely catastrophic. My brain rebooted just in time to process what I'd said. To the Queen. The actual Karellan Queen whose political power could have me exiled with a gesture. My face cycled through several colors probably unknown to human biology. Virelia's expression was unreadable. Then her skin, which normally maintained steady violet, suddenly flared bright red. Not crimson fury, but something that looked startlingly like embarrassment. I started desperately. "That was completely inappropriate and I'm so sorry, Your Majesty." "Stop." Her voice was quiet but carried authority that killed my apology mid-word. She gripped the desk edge, still bright red, breathing carefully like she was processing something difficult. I clamped my mouth shut, mentally composing resignation letters and explanations for why my career ended because I couldn't keep one stupid thought internal. Then Virelia did something completely unexpected. She laughed. Not her formal diplomatic laugh, a genuine, startled sound that seemed rusty from disuse. "In 4 years as queen," she said, not looking at me, "I have received thousands of formal compliments. Elaborate speeches about my wisdom, leadership, contributions to Karellan prosperity." She finally met my eyes, expression complicated, embarrassed but also amused. "No one has ever called me sexy," and then looked quite so horrified at themselves. "Your Majesty, I cannot apologize enough. I asked you to stop talking, but there was no anger in her tone. Why did you say it?" "Because I'm an idiot with non-functional brain-to-mouth filtering when I'm tired." Her lips twitched. "Try again, honestly." I took a shaky breath. Honest, she wanted honest because it's true. "Because you were focused on the data, and the light caught your features in a particular way, and my first thought was that you're extraordinarily beautiful, and my second thought should have been, don't say that out loud. But apparently that thought came third." The red in her skin deepened. "You find me attractive." "Yes, completely inappropriately and irrelevantly to our professional relationship, but yes." I figured I'd already destroyed my career, might as well be truthful. "I've thought so since approximately week 2 when you challenged my research methodology. You were brilliant and sharp and beautiful, and I've spent 4 months very carefully not thinking about any of that." "Week 2, Virelia repeated quietly. "Yes, Your Majesty." "And you never said anything, never acted on it, just continued being professional. That's what professionalism means." "Yes," she sounded almost sad, "it is." Virelia walked to the window overlooking the observation deck, putting distance between us. Her skin gradually shifted from bright red back toward violet, but not completely. "Do you know what it's like," she asked quietly, "to have everyone treat you as a position rather than a person? To have every interaction filtered through protocol and political calculation?" I had no answer. I became queen at 23 when my father died unexpectedly. Too young, unprepared, surrounded by advisors who saw me as a problem to be managed. She still faced the stars. I've spent 4 years proving I'm capable, earning respect through perfect execution of duty. And in that time, no one has looked at me like I'm anything except the queen. She turned back. Until you just lost your words because you found me attractive, not politically advantageous, not strategically useful, just attractive. I really am sorry. Don't be. Her expression was vulnerable in a way that made my chest ache. Don't apologize for the first genuine, unfiltered reaction I've received in years, even if it was wildly inappropriate. We stood in awkward silence, the research presentation completely forgotten. I knew I should leave, but Virelia hadn't dismissed me. Your Majesty. Virelia, she interrupted, when we're private, just Virelia. The informality was startling. That's not protocol. Protocol is why I'm lonely. She stated it like obvious fact. Why I have advisors but no friends. Why I have political allies but no one who genuinely knows me. Why I wake up wondering if the person I was before the crown even exists anymore. I saw her with sudden clarity. The perfect composure wasn't strength, it was armor. The formal distance wasn't preference, it was protection. I'm sorry, I said, and this time not for the compliment. For what? For not seeing how isolated you are. For contributing to that isolation by maintaining such careful professional boundaries. You were being appropriate. Maybe appropriate isn't always right. Virelia studied me. You realize this conversation is dangerous for both of us. Because of the power differential. Because if people knew we were having it, they'd assume impropriety. They'd question my judgment. They'd suggest you're manipulating royal favor. Are those things you're worried about? No, she stepped closer. I know my own judgment, and I know you well enough to recognize you're incapable of that kind of manipulation. You're frustratingly, sometimes inconveniently honest. Then what are you worried about? That I'm so starved for genuine connection, that I'm reading too much into one impulsive compliment from an exhausted human. Her vulnerability was devastating. I made a decision that was either brave or catastrophically stupid. I meant it, the compliment, not just in that moment. You're brilliant and beautiful, and the way you think through complex problems is captivating. I've thought so for months. I didn't say it because protocol demanded I didn't, but since I've already destroyed those boundaries. I met her eyes. You asked for honesty. I find you extraordinary. As a scientist, as a leader, and yes, as someone I'm extremely attracted to despite knowing how impossible that is. Virelia's skin flared red again. Impossible because I'm queen. Impossible because I'm human, you're Karellan. The political implications would be catastrophic. And I have no idea if what I'm feeling is even something your species experiences the same way. We experience attraction, she said quietly. Emotional connection, desire, loneliness. The biological mechanisms differ, but the fundamental experiences are remarkably similar. She was very close now, which makes this more complicated, not less. Probably should step back then, I said, not moving. Probably should, she agreed, also not moving. Your Majesty, I asked you to use my name. Virelia, tell me to leave. Tell me this was a momentary lapse, and tomorrow we return to strict professionalism. Is that what you want? No, but it's probably what's wise. Virelia reached out, her hand hovering near my face but not quite touching, a question more than action. I'm very tired of being wise. I caught her hand before I could reconsider, and the contact sent electricity through me. Virelia's skin was warm, softer than expected, and her expression shifted to something like relief. We should talk about this, I said, even as my thumb traced her knuckles. About protocols and power dynamics and political ramifications. We should, Virelia agreed, stepping closer. We should be sensible and appropriate and maintain professional boundaries. Yes, we should probably not do what I very much want to do right now. My heart hammered. What do you want to do? Kiss you. Find out if this connection is real or fantasy born from isolation. Risk the complications because the alternative, pretending I don't feel this, seems worse. Her free hand rose to my chest. But I won't. Not without your explicit consent. Not with the power differential that exists between us. The power differential where you could fire me or exile me. Yes, where anything that happens could be interpreted as coercion. Exactly. Where I have every reason to feel pressured, even if you don't intend it. All of that. Virelia's honesty was unflinching, which is why I need you to understand you can say no, you can leave. You can request transfer tomorrow, and I'll facilitate it without prejudice. You hold more power in this moment than you realize, because I won't act without your genuine, freely given choice. I looked at her, really looked. Saw the loneliness she described. Saw the vulnerability in admitting desire. Saw the queen willing to risk political complications for the possibility of genuine connection. I should say no, I admitted. Should protect my career, avoid the political minefield, be the professional I'm supposed to be. Yes, you should. But I spent 4 months carefully not feeling what I feel, carefully maintaining distance from someone who fascinates me, carefully being appropriate while feeling increasingly isolated myself. I lifted my free hand to her face, mirroring her earlier gesture. So if you're asking if I consent to exploring whatever this is, despite complications and risks, yes. Absolutely yes. Virelia closed the remaining distance between us, and the kiss was everything I hadn't let myself imagine. Gentle initially, then deeper as months of restrained attraction found expression. Her hands threaded through my hair. My arms circled her waist. For several perfect moments, there was no queen and consultant, no protocols or power dynamics, just two people discovering they fit together remarkably well. When we finally broke apart, both breathing harder, Virelia's skin was still that bright red. So that's what you look like when you're embarrassed, I observed, slightly dazed. Apparently. She touched her flushed cheek. I wasn't certain myself. I'm not usually in situations that produce this reaction. I'll try to embarrass you more often. Please do. Then her expression became serious. Nathan, this is complicated. We'll face scrutiny, questions about appropriateness, political implications I can't fully predict. I know. Your career could suffer. People will assume you're leveraging personal connection for professional advantage. Let them assume. I know the truth. This could fail. Relationships are difficult enough without adding politics and species differences. Also could succeed. I touched her face gently. You said you're tired of being wise. I'm tired of being careful. So let's be reckless together and see what happens. Virelia laughed. Reckless, the queen of the Karellan dominion being reckless. Scandalous. Completely inappropriate. Probably the best decision I've made in years. She kissed me again, and I thought that maybe the most important discoveries weren't in laboratories, but in moments when two lonely people were brave enough to be honest. Later, when we finally returned to discussing the research that started this evening, Virelia caught me staring. You're doing it again. Doing what? Looking at me like I'm more than a queen. You are more than a queen. You're Virelia. And yes, I find you so sexy, I occasionally lose my capacity for coherent speech. I'm making peace with that reality. She turned bright red again, and I discovered that making the queen blush might be my new favorite scientific observation. We're going to have to establish protocols, Virelia said, trying to sound regal despite her color. For balancing this with our professional relationship, for handling eventual public knowledge. 4. Tomorrow, I interrupted gently. We'll figure out protocols tomorrow. Tonight, can we just be two people who took a risk and are glad they did? Virelia's smile was radiant. Yes, tonight we can just be. We spent hours talking, not about research or politics, but about ourselves. She told me about growing up in her father's shadow, the pressure of unexpected succession, the loneliness of leadership. I shared my journey from academic research to xenobiological consulting, My own isolation as someone whose work made genuine friendships difficult. I've been alone in rooms full of people, Virelia said at one point, surrounded by advisors and courtiers and allies, all seeing the crown but not the person wearing it. I know that feeling, I admitted. Different context but the same essential loneliness. Is that why you took this position? The isolation of deep space work. Partly, also the research opportunities. But yes, being alone felt safer than being surrounded by people and still feeling isolated. And now, I pulled her closer. Now I'm thinking that the right person makes isolation unnecessary rather than safe. Virelia's skin flushed again and I couldn't help smiling. You're enjoying this, she accused, making me turn red. Immensely. It's adorable, and I've discovered I have no shame about telling you so. I'm the queen. I'm not supposed to be adorable. You're Virelia. You're allowed to be both regal and adorable. I contain multitudes of appreciation for all your qualities. She laughed and kissed me, and I marveled at how natural this felt despite being completely unprecedented. We should discuss practicalities, Virelia said eventually. How we handle this publicly. What boundaries we maintain professionally. Agreed, but first I have a question. Yes, when I inevitably say something else impulsive and inappropriate because my brain stops functioning around you, will you always turn that particular shade of red? Nathan, because I'm documenting it for scientific purposes. The xenobiological implications of cross-species attraction producing visible physiological responses. She kissed me to stop the teasing, which I decided was an excellent precedent to establish. When she pulled back, her expression was serious again. I meant what I said about complications. There will be political opposition, questions about appropriateness, factions who see this as weakness or impropriety. I know that I can't promise this will be easy, or that my position won't make things difficult for you. I'm not asking for easy, I'm asking for real. And this, I gestured between us, feels more real than anything I've experienced in years. Even though it started with you blurting out that I'm sexy. Especially because it started that way. No calculation, no strategy, just honest reaction I couldn't contain. Virelia rested her head against my shoulder, and the gesture was so trusting it made my chest tight. For the record, she said quietly, you're quite attractive yourself. I've thought so since approximately week 3, when you challenged my assumptions about biological compatibility with such respectful intensity. Week 3. Week 2 was when I noticed you were brilliant. Week 3 was when I noticed you were also frustratingly handsome, and I needed to stop noticing. And yet you kept me on staff. Professional masochism, apparently. She lifted her head to meet my eyes. I told myself it was because your research was valuable. But truthfully, I looked forward to our briefings more than I should have. We're quite the pair, I observed, both carefully not acknowledging what we felt. Until you lost your verbal filters. Best malfunction of my life. She kissed me again.